back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, I have Josh Torres
Hi, it's been one hell of a week already.
and Chao Min Wu.
How's it going?
So we are recording this episode on Saturday, June 8th. Adam and James are over in LA right now at Summer Games Fest and all the related kind of on-site activities there. We are kind of recording this halfway through the slate of things that are happening, but we figured we would still record, even though it's going to be just the three of us, me, Josh, and Chow here to record, so that we're not queuing up even more for next week. Because the main event, the Keighley showcase, was just last night. We have things that are slated for today, like the Wholesome Direct Future Game Show. The Xbox and PC Gaming Showcase are both either later today or tomorrow. Of course, at the time that this podcast is published, those events will have occurred. But we're going to talk about what has already been announced prior to those to help kind of even our plate to the best extent that we can. We also have a Nintendo Direct that has been announced for June. Nintendo themselves have said that they're going to have one, so that could come up at any time. And we have also just some more game-specific news that certain publishers and developers have mentioned will be coming out later in June. But we'll talk about the things that have been announced, a lot of demos that are available, the Summer of Indies, some people have called this. We have some bigger games that we've had some updates for. So this is going to be a very news-focused direct, or not direct. This is our direct. It's the RPG Site Direct, a news-focused podcast.
RPG site.
And then we'll have the games that we'll talk about. Usually, if we get a chance to talk about them, will be in the context of the demos that we've played for upcoming games. So that's the sort of things that this podcast is going to go over. So I've tried to organize our little timeline to the best extent that I could, try to group, bigger games in front, indie games in back, try to group them a little bit by type, but it's going to kind of be just in the order that we have them listed here, and we'll try to have our timestamps as clear as possible. So if you see a game you're interested in, hopefully you can go right back to where we're going to be talking about all these different games from up and down the size spectrum, Western developers, Eastern developers, all those sorts of things.
Majority of these demos aren't gonna be out till at the time of this recording next week, but when you're probably listening to this, probably out now on Steam because it's all part of Steam Next Fest, and some of these smaller demos came out ahead of Steam Next Fest. So that's kind of the main event for the demos that they're all kind of circling around. The two demos that I briefly got my hands on. One was an RPG that we've been doing use for in the site was Keylocker, sort of a cyberpunk RPG. Has a really nice aesthetic and style to it. But unfortunately, I played a bit of that demo, probably in about 30 minutes to an hour ish, but I just bounced off of it, unfortunately, because while I really, really dig the visual and the sound of that game, the gameplay itself it's one of those unfortunate instances where I believe an indie developer just kind of mishandles the timed hits mechanic of turn-based RPGs, how it was done Super Mario RPG, and Thousand Year Door and all sorts of stuff, where the battle system has you moving along these grids, these tiles towards enemies to get them in the range of your attack, but every single action that you do, whether it's a normal attack or whether it's an enemy attacking you, everything is like a life or death timed hit almost. Even in the tutorial, if you miss one or two perfect dodges, the timed perfect dodges, they just take off 50 to 70% of your life. And then there's values on the difficulty levels that I played normal and all that stuff, but it's just one of those games that's it really demands, if you're really into timed hits on everything, this might be for you. But personally, I'm not a fan of getting punished for missing a timed hit, whether I'm on the offense or the defense. So if you miss a timed hit on your offense, you don't really do that much damage. And then depending on how, if you miss an incoming attack either early or later, you'll get different damage values. And then even sometimes you do a perfect dodge. Well, actually, a perfect dodge you won't do any damage, but it's a pretty tight window. And then when you do a perfect hit to power up your attack, you'll still take a little bit of damage that you have to mitigate through other tools in that game. So like at the beginning of battle, you'll have like no energy or mana, and then you have to go use another command that'll do another not timed hit, but it's like a little rhythm mini game, almost like a Guitar Hero S style mini game. And then depending on how you do well on that, you'll charge like a certain amount of energy, and then you can use that for offense or defensive capabilities. And it's kind of tiring to play even in that short amount of time because it demands so many timed hits. So it's one of those things like it's a little unfortunate. I wonder if they'll reconsider because I know it kind of um advertises itself as an unforgiving sort of game, but I'm like there could be other
They
ways
probably went
to
too hard,
yeah
probably.
there's probably other ways to like still get that point across without making it feel tiring to play,
Yeah,
right?
and this is a game that we've checked in on a few times. I think it was announced back in 2020. Again, this is Keylocker.
Mhm.
So very much kind of they explicitly call both Chrono Trigger and Mario and Luigi like as inspirations. I'm not exactly sure I see the Chrono Trigger, but of course the timed hits is a very Mario RPG staple. But yeah, unlike either of those two inspirations, got the rhythm-based combat basically permeating throughout everything that you do. Cyberpunk aesthetic, isometric perspective, but
Right.
yeah, I could see that if it's, unlike the Mario RPGs where the timed hits are kind of bonuses, this is like core to the crux of the, you can't turn it off. So
Right.
if they establish it as unforgiving and then that just doesn't allow you any chance to like have any wiggle room at all, I could see how that could be frustrating over an extended period of time.
And another
But
cool one's not necessarily an RPG that I tried out, just the last one I did because most of these I'm gonna try out next week for that Steam Next Fest. It's not necessarily in our wheelhouse; it's more of a strategy game, but I think it's really cool. And I think RPG fans would like it. It's called Tactical Breach Wizards. I know people have been talking about the development of this game for quite a while now. I don't know exactly when it started showing up on the scene, but it's a really really cool strategy game where um it's basically like imagine if like you're doing like a more military secret agent esque type of strategy game, like in that sort of surface, but then it's like the real world meshed with like a fantasy world where like imagine if like wizards existed in modern society and like how that would play out. So like before each mission, you deploy like your I only got to play with like up to two party members at a time in that demo, but like you can choose like their placement on like where to breach from because some stages have like multiple breach points, and then you breach into the room, and you kind of sort of puzzle out of like how to efficiently take down as many people as possible. And then there's like sometimes environmental things that you can push them in, like you can push them out of windows, so you don't have to worry about depleting their life with just your offensive tools alone. You can like push them towards the window, and they'll fall out of it, and instant kill them. You can do stuff like push them into other objects, which will do another point of damage if they hit like a wall or something when you push them back. It's a little bit like into the breach in that aspect. There's also like you can have like magical spells like a chain lightning bolt that you can chain to like up to like two other um enemies to take them out or do a significant amount of damage. But that costs mana, and then you actually like have this mana resource where like you can spend mana to do like powerful skills like that, but then in order to regain mana, you have to like hack into laptops across the level to like gain like one charge of mana. Again, it has a really nice like sense of humor to it, and the nice part about it, since like one of the main characters is sort of like a wizard that like can command time. They can actually how the game treats your tactical strategy approach as like I'm doing these moves, and I can see like how I think you can foresee like how the enemy will respond to them. Um, and then when you finally like choose like end turn or like execute action, it'll do those all in real time. But if there's something that was like wrong with your approach or like you don't like, you can actually just like rewind to like the start of that turn and like kind of redo your actions, and maybe there's like a better, more efficient way to go about clearing out the level. It's a really really neat strategy game that I think people who like strategy RPGs should check out. It's a pretty nice um, twist to the formula.
yeah, and
Tactical
it's
Breach
always
Wizards
yeah,
is
and it's
the name
kind
of
of
the title.
always strategy and RPG really go hand in hand a lot. So drawing the line as pure strategy versus strategy RPG, It's one of those things that there's a lot of intuition to it, but everyone kind of has there's no clear definition. Like, Into the Breach or Metal Slug Tactics, even, which is an upcoming game. Like, how much do those lean into RPG versus strategy or tactical?
Right.
And like, I guess I don't know offhand, off the cuff, what's the difference between strategy and tactical game. I'm not 100% sure. Everyone kind of has their own opinion. But it's kind of cool to see how this one it may not have explicitly any RPG strong elements there, but it might have some of the same kind of concepts that an RPG fan might enjoy in a pure strategy game.
Yeah.
And then since you did talk about Keylocker, they did have another presence. They've kind of the studio over at Moonana and then publisher Serenity Forge. Usually they take the time during the summer, streams and events to update us on the status of their game. It's still slated for a summer release this year, so it's been in development a while. So hopefully those that have been looking forward to it won't have to be waiting much longer. They did announce that in addition to the previously announced PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, it is also now planned to launch for Nintendo Switch as well. So all but confirmed, it'll be a simultaneous launch for all the platforms sometime this summer, so within the next couple months. So we'll keep our eyes out for that because it might come up this week. We're not sure, or it might come up when it's ready to release. We'll keep an eye out. Okay, I'm just gonna start going into the news topics here. Oh, I guess before we
Yeah.
go into news, maybe I'll go into our. We have a handful of different features on the site. I'll just kind of quickly go through these. So these are reviews, op-eds, and a few other previews that we've put up over the last week. As we kind of have teed up, it has been a very busy week, not only for upcoming games, but a lot of games that have been releasing or about to release. So I'll just kind of go through these. A couple games came out in May that we weren't able to get to on release that James was able to cover up on the site. One as a review and one under our branching path label, which is kind of like a label for op-eds, opinion pieces, or review-like pieces for games that aren't explicitly RPGs, games that we don't typically cover. He put up a review for a game called Cryptmaster. This is a monochromatic first-person dungeon crawler with a very spooky horror vibe that came out on Steam in May. It is a game that on Steam has been well regarded with really good word of mouth. It is overwhelmingly positive. However, James was a little less down on it. He did not feel as strongly about it, but instead of speaking for him, I'll just kind of point to his review up on the site. He does think it's a solid proof of concept and does think it's like a good starting point. This is from Akupara Games, but we do have the review for Cryptmaster up on the site at rpgsite.net. The other game that James was able to cover this month before he left for LA. Well, I guess he lives in LA. Before he left specifically for Summer Games Fest, he did cover the Metroidvania 9 Souls. This is kind of a Hollow Knight Ori style Metroidvania sort of Souls like thing, but not explicitly an RPG. So not a game that we've covered, though we probably could have. But unlike Cryptmaster, he did think very highly of this. He did kind of put up an opinion feature up on the site. Not a scored review, but it reads very similar to one. But a game that he has been pretty glowing about, even on previous episodes of the Tetracast. So he put up his thoughts in written form up on the site, rpgsite.net.
He said if he
Uh,
was able to score it, he would give it a 9, but
mhm.
his Twitter seems to be suspended for some odd reason right now. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
yeah. His he's still on Twitter. We'll put his current Twitter. I'll check with him before we publish this to see if we'll put his current Twitter on the podcast post as we normally do. But yeah, that's evolving circumstance there with his Twitter access. So we'll see. Of course, one of the bigger releases later this month is the big expansion for Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. Alex was able to pop in and put up a preview for Shadow of the Erdtree. He kind of framed it as a listicle. It's a preview, so people have different opinions on how useful previews are. There are some key things here that if you haven't been following the news explicitly, you might like some of these things were things that I was not aware of, but Shadow of the Erdtree is From Software's biggest DLC to date. It is a separate map called the Land of Shadow, so which is kind of similar to how a lot of From Software DLC has worked in the past. But you can travel between the base area and the new area at will once you activate not a bonfire but a site of grace. Alex does go into his little preview listicle about this new thing called a Scadutree Blessing, which is basically some consumable way to boost your attack power and reduce your incoming damage. So it's kind of thought of as the summons. Like it's a way to make the game easier. If you can access the DLC at any point, even though it's kind of framed as like an end game area. But Elden Ring is not designed in a linear fashion. But he talks a little bit about some of the consumables there to help take the edge off if you go there, earlier versus later, things like that. But we have a
Yeah, makes
preview up on
sense.
the site for those that are eagerly looking forward to that DLC. Here's one that is a Chow special. So late last year on December, we got the official English localization of the Type Moon visual novel Witch on the Holy Night. I remember spending a couple of podcasts kind of talking about it and kind of what the implications are, what it meant, kind of the event it was.
I
I'm
think
not the
it's
best
like
person to
that. Was
talk
that
about
just
those.
was that just for the because it came out previously on the Switch, and I think that was the pre-C release, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It came out on Switch. I think the year before that.
Oh,
I
okay.
think
That
I
was
think how it went was James said that he was gonna do it, and I rolled the review up and put it there. And it's like, oh, this was a bit of miscommunication over there. But it was done a long time ago. It was never post because I wasn't really confident about writing a visual novel review, so it's like my first one. So it's just
Yeah,
like
it's a tricky one. It's always kind of a weird affair, but I think it did a good job.
Yeah,
yeah, it's just kinetic novel. What can you
Mhm.
say?
Yeah.
well, I mean, the site has kind of been up and down based on who our current staff and contributors are at the time about how much we cover visual novels. Like you might say, like, why do you cover visual novels? Like, I don't know, because we can. Like, who's gonna stop us? Um, but yeah, so that was a game that you felt pretty strongly of and wanted to write a review. So we're not gonna say no, and we put up on the site. So yeah, in the past we've covered them more or less depending on which year you're talking about, but. You wrote up your thoughts on Witch on the Holy Night and put them up on the site. So go ahead and give Chow's Witch on the Holy Night review up on the site. A read.
Yeah, and then the Tsukihime official localization will be out on later this month, on like the 27th, I believe, or PS5 Switch. So
Yeah, can you believe it? We finally have them in English.
I'm really interested to check it. Like, I'm definitely gonna get it. I hopefully have time to like read it because it is a long visual novel. It's a very long visual novel,
It's like, what is it? It's just like less than 3 weeks. It's like, ooh.
but it also depends on like what's. There's gonna be a lot of games out.
Couple more features up on the site from James. The first two are both paired together for the upcoming expansion Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail. He had the opportunity to play, I think, like a 6, 7, 8 hour session with the game. So he put up his preview thoughts, again, preview, on that expansion, specifically focusing around the two new classes. He also put up he tagged it as an interview. I'm not sure if this was a submitted question answer or if he had a sit down with Yoshi P. And he framed this interview with Yoshi P about the idea of sanctioning Final Fantasy XIV raid races. So this is not something that I can speak to directly. It's been largely a community run effort up to this point, is my understanding. But Yoshi P has stated some desire to kind of sanction it in a way. So the ideas about what that would need, what Yoshi P's ideas are for potentially implementing that, things like that. So we kind of have both the preview feature and this interpretation of the interview up on the site as well, both published by James. And then I don't know when he did this, but James apparently also put up some time in with Destiny 2's most recent expansion, The Final Shape. So Destiny 2 is a strange game that we kind of check in on like every time there's a major release, and usually James is on the forefront of that. So he did put up let's see, what did he tag it as? A preview or a review? I'm trying to see.
There's like more like a feature, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm
Mm.
not sure exactly what he tagged it as, but he did took a look in at Destiny 2, The Final Shape. It's my understanding, having not been in the Destiny 2 sphere, is that this is kind of similar to uh, a lot of the other MMOs or MMOs like games, service games, where this is kind of like the conclusion of a very long story arc. So I know a lot of Destiny 2 players have been really excited about this for a while. Apparently, it took a team like 19 hours to beat the added raid or something like that. The details, take that with a grain of salt. I'm not on the Destiny 2, like I'm not on the up and up. But from my seat on the fringe, it seems like it's been received pretty well. Except that I have someone at my real life job who has been playing this that has told me that the servers have been on fire ever since release. So hopefully,
Yeah, they've been
that
up and down. I have a friend who's like who's doing the raid, and or whatever the new raid that came out. It's apparently freaking crazy. I don't know if anyone's cleared it yet. I haven't checked
Maybe
in on that.
maybe
But yeah,
maybe
but
the 19-hour was a different piece of content, but
it's a lot of manipulating shapes from what I hear. A lot
mm,
of shape recognition, which is I hear it's a large obstacle to clear for the Destiny community right now.
and that was kind of quick rapid fire, but we have a lot of the features up on the site, rpgsite.net. And we also post news on rpgsite.net, and Josh has been carrying the brunt. Josh has been our Atlas for like the last 2 weeks
I mean,
for
yeah,
most of these news.
since Adam's there, I'm like, well, it is what it is. So, but Adam's been helping me thankfully here and there, which I very much appreciate. I figured most of it, I'll probably have to ride through it.
But yeah, so like I kind of stated at the top of the podcast, this is not in any real particular order. I tried to make it make sense, but we'll just go through this. So the first one is more of a tease because this news, the further news, is going to be coming later on June 11th. Again, we're recording this on the 8th, and this is for the upcoming Dragon Age game. Dragon Age Dreadwolf is now known as Dragon Age the Veilguard, with more information to be shared on June 11th. So, what do we think about the name change?
I mean, it's
You might say it
I don't
doesn't
know.
matter, but
Yeah, but it's also kind of blander. I feel that there is an edge to Dreadwolf, right? Because of
yeah.
just the way that it sounds. The Veilguard sounds like it's very bland, I think. It's like, okay, I mean, they put up a blog post that, a little bit more of why they changed the name. So they revealed that there'll be 7 companions aside from your main character
Mhm.
in this newest release. And that the reason for the name change was they wanted to focus more on your heroes rather than like the villain. Um, which is like, okay, I mean, sure, I guess. I mean, it ultimately doesn't matter, but what people care about first and foremost, and
Is
whatever they're
what we're
gonna
gonna see.
show. Yeah, apparently it's gonna be a 15-minute gameplay reveal. I think everyone's just crossing their fingers that it looks good.
Yeah.
Which
To
is
me, to me, like, and again, this is just a name, so I don't want to spend too much time just like criticizing the name when we're gonna get actual more meaningful stuff in a
yeah.
week. But to me, if it was just Dragon Age Veilguard, like I think the Veilguard makes it sound like a Netflix spinoff or something like that, or it's like a comic
Okay.
adaptation. Like it just sounds
Right,
like
right.
an accompanying piece. And there was that one Dragon Age show like released on Netflix like a year or two ago that I don't think made any waves at all. So I'm curious about how that turned out.
What was the name
But
of that? I already forgot the name of
I
it.
don't even remember, but it came out and I remember like circling it sort of on my calendar, like sure I'll watch that, and then I never watched it. But
Absolution, that was the name of it. So, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, a lot of very middling, like first glance reviews from what that came out in 2022, and just didn't really make a splash. I mean, it's definitely like no Arcane or Edge runners, in that regard. Um,
which
so
actually like made a really big positive splash, both those
right,
anime adaptations.
yeah, and then Arcane, they're already teasing like the next part of Arcane as well.
Mhm.
So yeah,
So more details to
I
come next week. Maybe we'll
right.
just kind of leave it at that. We have the title,
It's kind
Dragon
of,
Age: The Veilguard.
it just feels weird that they're like it's so it feels it's hard to say it's so late in development because we don't know when this thing's gonna come out until maybe they announce it.
A
It
lot of
just
the
feels like it,
scuttlebutt has been that it's this year, but from
yeah,
various levels of verified leaker, we have no idea. And that's not us being coy. We have no idea. Maybe they'll give
yeah.
us release date in a week. So we'll see.
Hopefully, just whatever they show, it's good because like a lot of people like this game has like kind of the whole world against it of like people have so many different expectations for what this game is in their heads,
Mhm.
and it's had such a tumultuous like journey in game development like that's been heavily publicized that it's like I guess we'll see what that all means in a few days.
Okay, we have a few other game announcements here that I've listed. We have three in a row before we go into some trailers for some existing games. So the first one is a neo-noir turn-based RPG called Neon Blood. This is not a game we've covered before on the site, though it was, I believe, announced a while ago. So this is not
Mm,
like the reveal of the game, but it's the first time we've
right.
covered it on our site. So this is a game slated for releasing later this year on all platforms. And you were the one that was able to cover the news and decided to create its entity on the site and everything. It's like a side-scrolling cyberpunk kind of aesthetic.
Yeah. It's like pixels for the like high fidelity pixels for the character designs, and then but the actual environment that you're traversing is like 3D assets. It has a really
Mhm.
nice like neon, of course, cyberpunk sort of aesthetic to it. A lot of like neon signs that like provide lighting as you're traveling around. And then they haven't really got into like so much of the battle system yet, but we do know it's like a turn-based battle system based on like a little bit of footage and the screenshots of like, hey, you'll have options to attack, defend, use skills and an ultimate and so forth. But they haven't gone too much into how the character building will work. And like the story premise is very much you're playing this detective. The humanity is on the brink after World War III has happened, and now they're all the remnants of humanity are now contained within this metropolis called Viridis, and then it's split between two remaining cities, which is like kind of the high class and the low class city of like Bright City and Blind City. So you play this detective from Blind City named Axel McCoy, and they haven't really gone too much into like the premise, but we just know that like you're gonna take on like the role of this detective and like kind of go against like this the injustices based on like the hierarchical structure, like the split between the social classes in between these two cities and so forth. So I just thought it had a really cool look. They did describe it as an RPG, and you can kind of see it in the battle system, and then we have yet to see how they're actually gonna like build your characters and like what like if there'll be. I mean, I think the trailer shows off like other party members as well in it. So I was like, sure, why not? The main new news here was like they gave a time frame like Q4 2024, and that it'll have a physical release in a very limited form in the sense that like only the PlayStation 5 and Switch versions are getting this limited edition physical release with like some goodies like a art book, digital soundtrack, and city guide. But it's only for select European retailers. So
So you
Huh.
probably had to deal with like limited run or some stuff like that. Is that what's happening?
no, they're partnering with their publisher Meridium for this. So it's not limited run, but it's just right now the if you want a physical copy of this game, it's only for going to be at Europe pretty much. So if you want to import it, you have to deal with shipping costs and so forth. If you're like in the States anywhere.
Dang. This game looks really cool from the
Yeah.
screenshots that's there. It kind of reminds me of this like cyberpunk like 2770 artwork that they turned like pixelated. I always thought that whole thing was like kind of like a spoof concept for April Fools, but it looks like
Mm.
somebody took that concept and just made a whole game out of it. Technically,
Yeah, it's a really visually striking game, and I hope like the gameplay holds up. It does look really cool.
The next game announcement that we have is for an action RPG, and this is for a game called Tribe 9. It is being developed by Akatsuki Games under the supervision of Tukyo Games. It's the same studio that made Master Detective Archives Raincode. It has the artist Rui Komatsuzaki who did Danganronpa, so it has that sort of character design to it. So Akatsuki Games basically revealed the first gameplay trailer for it, introducing a lot of the characters, showing a fair bit of gameplay, and of course, just like the general art style and UI. And we always mention like, please show how the game actually plays. And this first trailer
Mhm.
actually shows a fair bit of menu UI, gameplay UI, like how the game might actually look and play. So I do appreciate it for that.
Yeah,
No details in terms of release, but they have said that they are planning to have a closed beta test on Steam in August, and the game will also be available for mobile devices for its full release.
yeah, it's a free to play title as well.
Got mhm.
On that. So I imagine there'll be they already said also they already mentioned have in-game purchases, so there'll be some sort of like monetization on it. We don't know exactly. There's like a gotcha, probably have a gotcha system. Um, but in terms of like gameplay stuff, it's like like the traversal itself is like you have like pixelated characters once again traveling through 3D environments. But then when you get into battles, you'll have your party of three engage in like real-time battles against enemies. So you can like freely move around and attack. And then there'll be like some sequences like bosses that have like bullet hell patterns. So like people who played near before will definitely see like a little bit of the lineage. Um, this is a weird one because There was a Tribe 9 anime that aired in January 2022, and I did watch that. I was like, oh, it was okay. Um, but the weird thing about that is like that Tribe 9 anime was very heavily focused. It's like gang territory warfare, and like that was the premise. But the way that everyone like combated each other, like confronted each other, was like through like an extreme form of like futuristic baseball. It was like very brutal baseball, so to speak. And like you see a little bit of the baseball here to like a character skill, but in terms of like everything else, like the baseball aspect has been like I don't
Yeah,
know.
so okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So I had wrote a note to myself that it was an anime, but then I just forgot to say it. But
yeah,
yeah, when
yeah.
I watched the gameplay trailer of the game, I didn't really pick up on baseball. So I go to the IMDb page for Tribe 9 the anime, and in the very first summary sentence it says, "In a futuristic era overrun by gangs, a tournament of superpowered baseball takes place to determine
Yeah,
which gang shall rule." Like, oh,
yeah.
okay. I didn't pick that up in the game.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like,
So
when I was like, when I saw it, I was like, oh, so I wonder how they're gonna like translate like the baseball aspect of it, because that's how I know Tribe Nine as, because I watched the show, and I was like, what the fuck is this? and so interesting, I guess. I mean, you do see a character use like a baseball special or skill in it. I mean, hopefully it's cool. Hopefully it's fun. Well, I don't know. I haven't signed up for the beta. I don't know if I'm that interested in trying it out in a beta format, but I could be convinced if like someone if the full release comes out and people are like, "Hey, this is actually really good," then maybe I'll be convinced. Right now, I'm just kind of I could be swayed either way. I'm pretty neutral
mhm.
on it.
So yeah, those are the two announcements that I had up front here. So Neon Blood and Tribe 9. This next one I won't spend too much time on. I spent last week talking about my kind of final thoughts on the latest Guild Wars 2 expansion, Secrets of the Obscure. They were going to announce their newest one on June 4th. So they've announced their fifth expansion called Janthir Wilds. Uh, so they're following up on the yearly expansion. So this is the expansion that will launch on August 20th and then get three like quarterly, every 3 month updates into next year. So for those that aren't playing the game, the biggest things that they've added here that people have been asking for who play the game for a long, long time is player housing, which, it sounds like one of those things like a lot of people either care a lot or not at all about player housing. There's really no in between. But it's one of those things that it's kind of been something that the game has never really had, and they're finally actually going to implement it. Which you might say, like, well, I'd rather they implement something a little bit more meaningful, but they are bringing back raids, which haven't been in the game for 5 years. And one thing that I saw that they didn't advertise this, but I saw a Twitter post. They brought in a developer from Sims 4 to work on the player housing. I'm like, oh, that's
Oh, okay.
Nice.
that
Yeah.
seems like a good fit. I think from what I can tell, I'm pretty excited. They're pulling on some story threads from like the original game from Guild Wars 1 back in like 2005. So some things that I've kind of never really sat, which I'm both hot and cold on. I kind of wish they did something just completely new. Like this is something that we've invented this year. Like now we're not preying on nostalgia, but they decided to go an opposite route. They're like, we're gonna focus on this thing that we haven't gone back in on for like 15 years. So like that's also exciting because it's like a lingering plot thread that has never been picked up that they're deciding to pick back up. So obviously I'll report back in maybe when it releases late in August. They're also bringing a new weapon type, spears. Some of the characters will like use them like melee weapons. Some characters will like, more like hoplites or whatever you call them, like the Roman soldiers that chuck them like javelins or like joust with
Okay.
them.
All right. It's
So
always
they
funny when
they
like when a game like a game that's run as long as Guild Wars 2 is like we're finally bringing spears into the game. It's like, wait
Well,
a
yes,
minute.
yes, yeah. Spears used to just be an underwater weapon, and now they're allowing
Okay.
them on land. And
Okay.
how the classes work in Guild Wars is that it used to be that there are 9 classes, and each class can use a different array of weapons, but not everyone can use every weapon. Um, but for spears, they're saying everyone will get spears, regardless of what class you play. They'll just use them in different ways. I won't go into the details, but the one that I will just entertain is the Elementalist. As they've added weapons to that class over the years, a lot of the Elementalist weapons that they've added have all been melee. So just the archetype of being that ranged spellcaster has not really been well like supported. because most of the weapons are like being up close and personal as an elementalist. So people are like, just please ranged spear for elementalist, please. Like, don't make me go close. And elementals are low health, low armor classes, so they're very squishy. They're kind of considered like a high skill ceiling class. Like, please, and they haven't stated yet at the time of recording. I think they've given details on 3 of the 9 classes, and they're gonna do the marketing ramp up as you expect. But yeah, seems pretty exciting. I think despite how sour the last expansion ended, in terms of being a really kind of weird ending story wise, I think a lot of people the showing for Janthir Wilds has been strong enough that I think people are willing to like, okay, maybe it's just growing pains with the new model. We'll give them another go. That seems to be the optimism, I guess, seems to be the underlying current for the announcement. So
do they have any announcement for the housing, like how it works? Like I know in Final Fantasy 14 it becomes like this PvP where because it's it's all server based instead like everyone has like their own instance house in
they
some
have not
different MMOs.
They have not detailed it yet. What they did, like they basically did like a blog post for touching on what the expansion will bring, and now they're kind of going every week into a more detailed, like here's how spirits will work, here's how housing will work, here's how these other things we announced will work. So they haven't gone into detail yet, other than saying that it's account wide. So it doesn't matter if you've got 1 character or 20, you get 1 housing instance, which makes sense because I think the character cap is like 60, and they don't want to be like, you have 60 houses burdened on the server for a single player, the same that has a guy that has 1 character or whatever. That's the only thing they've said. So no details yet, but the fact that they're bringing in like external people who have history developing this sort of thing for it makes me seem like they're really taking it seriously. They're not just trying to tick a box and say, yeah, our MMO is housing or whatever. People are optimistic about it. Of course, there's some people that say like, well, I don't care about housing. Like I care about raids, but they're bringing in that too. So we'll see how well that goes.
Before we go to the next news story on the dock, I did since we're on the MMO talk, I do wanna. I don't really like have the most enthusiasm because I'm not a new world player, but I think the news story itself is interesting. Amazon Games announced a new world Aeternum. That is like half an expansion, half an overhaul um, of the game. So it's coming out on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on October 15th. So this will mean that New World does come to consoles on that date because Aeternum has all the content that the base New World game has, along with the Rise of the Angry Earth expansion to consoles. And for people who already bought the base New World game on PC and the Rise of the Angry Earth expansion, they'll get Aeternum for free at no extra cost. And what they've announced so far for this Aeternum expansion re-release console port thing is like it'll share the same servers as PC, so it'll be fully cross-play. All of the platforms will share the same servers with each other, so you can play with each other or just see them out on the field. Um, and then Aeternum brings like a new island zone that has like its story that you can play solo or co-op, entirely solo or co-op. It'll introduce large-scale PvP for the first time in New World. I guess people have been wanting that, and then a new like 10-player raid um, as well. And then so there'll be endgame solo trials, new character archetypes, revamped dialogue system, whatever that means, an upgraded leveling experience, whatever that means, um, and such. So it's kind of a weird like it's no secret that New World has been like on the downturn. Like it had a very strong start. Like you saw a lot of people raving about its player numbers in its first few months, but over time that player base has diminished. So
I
this
heard it got restored a little bit from the expansion. That's
Mhm.
what I heard. Like people were like kind of lukewarm about the game, but after the expansion, they're kind of like, oh yeah, it seems like a decent, like slowly steady climb back.
Yeah, I don't know exactly like what the health of the game is like right now, and like how the player base and the developers like see that. Obviously, I'm not tuned into the New World community in that aspect, but I just think it's really interesting that like there's sort of like half like a re-release, like reboot, like revitalization effort for New World, and hopefully it's cool. So I just wanted to call that to attention that like this Aeternum thing is just like not like your typical expansion release. It's also like has consoles in mind too to like bring them into the fold.
Now,
October
Yeah,
5th.
speaking of which, have they announced Blue Protocol as well? Because
They
or that Amazon Games have took that over.
So we know we originally they did like preliminarily announce it a few years. I don't know how long it's been. I think it was a few years back. To bring that to the West, but since it has been acknowledged by Bandai Namco as like has been done has performed very poorly so far in the Japanese market. I don't know what their plans are for that game, but as far as we know, we have no idea what the status of the Western release is for that game. If they're still bringing it over or not at all. We just don't know. Because that game seems to not be hitting the numbers that Bandai Namco thought it would, and there's been nothing to suggest that they can turn it around yet.
So I went to the Reddit for New World. I played the beta, and like I thought New World is the sort of game that I would definitely play more time if I just could freeze time.
Yeah,
And like this is just a vertical slice of what I read in the Reddit right now here on Saturday, June, whatever the day is, 8th. Goodbye, New World. What a sad day for me in New World. Announcement fully explained. To anybody wondering if this is still considered an MMO, like apparently more details indicating that it is still an MMORPG. The announcement in a nutshell. So it just seems like the announcement, and I was even from a fringe, like I saw some discussion in the Discord, like is this a spin-off? Is this a console version of a different game? Is this just the same IP? And it just seems like even like those that are visiting the Reddit, it wasn't 100% clear because like they didn't frame this announcement like New World is coming to consoles. They just said New World Aeternum coming out October, and we're like, wait, what is this? So it just seems like the communication has not been great.
yeah. And, I had to go over it with Adam, like before, because we got details ahead of time before publishing this. I was just redouble checking with Adam. It's like, is this what they're actually saying? you know. Because even us were like, what the fuck is the way they worded this was very poor. Like I even put the entire press release up on that news post because you could take it from them. Like it's as puzzling as it is to us in the way that they phrased this. But from what I understand, it's just like it is a new world, but like the title is just different for the console, but it's still that the entire new world game plus expansion plus this new content on that, and it's even sharing the same servers and content with one-to-one parity with the PC release and players. So
So
it's like okay,
I'm finding an op-ed that was posted literally today, literally like 2 hours ago on Massively OP. Um, this is written by Tyler Edwards at Massively OP. New World's Aeternum relaunch is actually a solid update with terrible timing and communication. In players' defense, Amazon's messaging around the update has been more than a bit confusing, so let me clarify a few things. It is not a complete redo of the game. It is not a shift away from being an MMORPG, even if
right,
Amazon is going out of its way to avoid the term in literally every communication. so
yeah,
so okay, I
yeah.
feel a little bit better being like, am I just confused? And like, no, I'm
No,
confused, but it seems like everyone's confused. So
I feel like Amazon Games like tried its best to try to get away from like the new world base release to because I don't know why, but they tried to they tried their best to word it that it's like, oh, it's definitely not this, but it's like, but it is that. But they're like, it's like, come on.
Trying to
apparently the
avoid the
fact
stigma.
apparently the fact that this is in October kind of threw this is me kind of gleaning quickly from snippets. Uh, the fact that apparently the New World community has been waiting for like an update. They knew one was coming, but it's not coming till October. They're like, well, that's longer than I thought, that sort of thing. So it seems like there's a little bit of we've been waiting for this, and now we're confused what the hell it even is, sort of thing going around,
Right.
explaining some of the early
Yeah.
sentiment. All right, so
Even the info that the leaked info that we got ahead of time from some colleagues, like they misunderstood it, which makes sense because they thought it was just like a new world spin-off that relied on like knowledge from like the MMO. It's like that can't be right. That seems really weird.
well, to me, I
And
think
it's
I like the idea as the concept of like hypothetical because this is not what New World Aeternum is. Here's a single player game that takes place in the WoW universe that is an independent story. And then if you want to play more, we've got our well established
it's like a
MMO or
Avowed,
whatever.
or was it like Avowed where it's a new experience but in the Pillars universe?
Yeah, oh yeah, but or like if because we were just talking about it. If Arena that said, here's a single player Guild Wars game, action RPG, whatever. And if you like this, if you like the mythos of this story, we have our MMO that you can play. Like we thought that might be what Aeternum was. Like it's like a snippet of the same mythos and IP, but nope. It's a rebranding of the base. Let me try to summarize it in one sentence based on what we've gone over. It is a rebranding of the MMO coming to consoles that will be cross-play, cross everything with the MMO. It's a rebranding. It's how I am interpreting it. Eh.
Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, I would say like we'll follow up, and like we will to some extent, but we don't. I don't think we have anyone on staff actively playing it, so we're limited in what we can do here. But obviously, go give Massively OP that article a read, and we also have the article on RPG site with the details as clear as we can put it straight from Amazon, even though it seems like they have not been very clear themselves. But New World Aeternum coming out October 15th. We'll leave it at that. All right. A lot of these next coming. So a lot of what we're gonna be talking about next is trailers. So obviously trailers on a podcast. We'll do what we can to make it as interactable or as detailed as possible. These first handful of trailers, a lot of these were shown during the stage presentation at Summer Games Fest, or were just announced alongside the Summer Games Fest events. So in no particular order, we'll start out with a new trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds. Of course, we just saw our first trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds less than a month ago at the very end of May at the Sony event. So this is a second look within a few weeks of the upcoming game coming in 2025. This one focuses on the fight between the hunters and a monster that was teased in the last video called a Balahara, which looks like a very spooky sandwormy thing with legs. It looks really cool. I really like this trailer more than the last one because it's a lot of just actual like this is what the game might actually look like, both cinematics and gameplay. But I don't know. I love the design of this thing. He's
Oh yeah.
a
Especially
spooky
the way
wormy
that they
boy.
framed the trailer, because it was like your hunter and a companion like running away from like a pack of like these sandworms chasing after them. It's like, oh god, that's scary.
Mm.
That's terrifying. But yeah, but the big news that they announced on stage at the Summer Games Fest from producer Ryozo Sugimoto was that yes, at long last, Monster Hunter Wilds will support crossplay across PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and Steam when it launches in 2025 worldwide simultaneously.
Is that a
The
new thing?
dream.
If I'm a Monster Hunter noob here, I don't know much about it.
Yes, yeah, that's new to Monster Hunter.
We
The
talked a
the,
little
the
bit about this a couple weeks ago, where World never hit that. Sunbreak and Rise were probably even worse because they started as a exclusive to the Switch, and finally Wilds doesn't have a Switch release. Don't know about Switch 2, but it's going to launch crossplay on all platforms from day one.
yeah,
Hallelujah!
that's
Hallelujah!
Man, that's wild.
yeah.
It's Monster
So
Hunter Wild.
I was already optimistic of them doing this because of how they did it with Street Fighter 5, or not Street Fighter 6.
Mhm.
So I was like, it wouldn't make sense that they had cosplay for that game and not this game. It would be a really big like misstep. So I was feeling optimistic. So it's kind of nice to have confirmation of it, and they also had crossplay in most capacities to Exo Primal, because Exo Primal was crossplay when it came to matchmaking and playing with other players. But you know what I recently learned from James was that the crossplay in terms of like partying up with your friends across different platforms was not supported at launch. And I thought, oh, they're gonna add that in shortly after, like maybe 1 or 2 months after. It's like no, it just recently got it, like how many months removed from the original launch. Like, it's like wow, that's they took way too long with that, along with like all the other problems that Exo Primal faced, of course. Um, but it's, you know, as long as I can partner up with friends who are who are on other platforms on Wilds on day one, then we're good. We're good. Which I'm optimistic that'll be the case for sure. It wouldn't mean it wasn't.
And it's kind of
Yeah.
showed in this trailer a little bit, but the trailer has too many cuts to make it seem very clear. But the one thing we talked about last time was the seamless transition from cutscene to gameplay, the voice protagonist, things like that. So a lot of those things have been kind of bugbears in the side of like World and Rise in terms of just the user experience, especially in multiplayer. So really exciting stuff. Cool monsters, crossplay is awesome, etc. So I don't know. After I played Rise, I kind of thought I was burnt out in Monster Hunter. The fact if this was a 2024 game, I might still feel that, but the fact that it's like a thing to look forward to for next year, I don't know. It feels like a good time for it.
Yeah, I think it's like just a nice breather right now. Like, okay,
Mhm.
you have a lot of like other games to like get to anyway this year. And it's
Mhm.
just nice. Like, if Wilds came out this year, like, I just feel it'd be too much, man. I feel like this year already feels like too much. Or not, we're barely halfway through it, and not like if Wilds just entered the stage like in the first 2 months of next year, I think it'll be a perfect time period. It's like New
Mhm.
Year, everyone feels a little bit refreshed. And it's a good way to like just start out the year with a bang.
We also got a new trailer at Summer Games Fest for the upcoming Metaphor ReFantazio. We do have a release date for this, right?
Yeah, that's October 11th, I believe. That's
Let's
It's only
yeah,
2 weeks after episode Aegis.
Yeah, so yeah, we did get a release date for episode
yeah,
I guess
October
we'll talk
11th.
about that.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that right after this. But we got a trailer diving into the new archetype job system for Metaphor ReFantazio, and it's also a little bit of a story trailer. They call it the Awaken trailer. So this trailer is kind of a mix of a few different things. It shows a fair bit of gameplay, a fair bit of like the animated cutscenes. Which I forget which studio was doing that or if that was told, but they look pretty nice. As well as diving into like the archetypes that the characters can select. I forget if these are all new or if people have been able to glean these from previous trailers, but we see things such as like Mage, Knight, Magic Knight, Brawler, Pugilist. I'm not sure the difference between a Brawler and a Pugilist. Healer, Gunner. Players will use a resource called Mag to awaken new archetypes. And it talks about how the bond system will also interface with the archetype system, where certain archetypes will require bond levels with certain characters, which just seems smart to integrate like the two systems. Um, and then I forget if this is new, but I'll mention it here. It has been announced that Yuji Himukai, who is a character designer from the Etrian Odyssey series, is working on a lot of the archetypes for Metaphor ReFantazio. So that's cool.
that's new. Yeah, they revealed that, which is that they said it's appropriate because it's kind of like a 35th anniversary title, so it's kind of that like they acknowledge that like hey, a lot of the DNA in terms of like having different classes and actually in Odyssey and having different party compositions with those different jobs, like it's very much like within the same DNA, bleeding over into metaphor, uh, in this instance, which is it's a nice acknowledgement of that.
So you're telling me this is more Etrianacy than less SMT, right?
It's kind of a fusion of both. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like more one or the other, but that you definitely see elements of both, right? This one still has like the almost like a press turn system where you'll gain more turns if you hit a weakness. Interesting thing about this game is like I didn't know about this from the previous trailer, but this actually has like a front and back row system. So like there'll be like jobs where like that'll only have skills that can only like work in the back row, for example. And then like there'll be like a commander job archetype that like has formation type skills, that manipulate that and like maybe grant certain bonuses on depending on row position, which is interesting. Yeah, they also have like a soul hacker class, which we last saw that in Xenoblade 3. Um,
That's true.
um, and they also have a system called Traveler's Voices, and this is a really interesting one. There's like your network integration. You know how like in modern Persona titles, they like you kind of see like what other people did with their in-game day, like because if people are like I don't know what to do today, like you can see what other people on the network did. For this one, um, for like difficult battles, you can actually consult like a system called the Traveler's Voices. You can actually see what other players' party compositions and levels were during an like for doing an encounter, and like if you I believe if you meet those prerequisitions, you can actually just switch on the fly to that player's like party composition and play the battle out that way of like what they use. Oh,
That's a
yeah.
lot of features that you see in modern gacha games these days when they release like a super challenging battle. I
Hmm.
think it's in Honkai Star Rail. Like if you do the Memory of Chaos, it will be like, oh, it's like I can't beat this. What do I do? And then you could check your friend list and who cleared it, and you could see their team comp. And the same thing with Grand Blue as well. When they release a certain mode in the Tower of Babel, it's basically the
Hmm.
same thing. You copy their team layout. If you have it, it automatically sets you up just like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, so, yeah. Same. Same thought process. But that's generally, I think that's like a really cool feature. Like it's something that's like not really in your face, in your way. It also just like lets you see like what your friends did for like a certain encounter. It's like, oh, what was like their plot process? Because like the way that the game's structured is like it allows for so many different party compositions and tactics. Because like since all of your party can like share the same job archetype, you can have like a party of like all mages or all knights or all pugilists and so forth. Um, so it's definitely one way to like kind of see what the thought process is of like everyone involved in a certain like maybe difficult boss
Yeah,
and
I seem
exploring
much
different
more
ways.
interested in this game now. Like when
Yeah.
my first thought process when I was seeing this game
Mhm,
back then was like it was just like Persona in a different skin. That's like my impression of it, right?
mhm, mhm.
But now it's like, okay, it's totally not Persona at all.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's still common misconception that it's like a Persona reskin. It's like it does share a little bit of like the Persona DNA for sure. But I think it's ultimately trying to do its own thing by borrowing ideas from other of Atlas's IP together, um, make its own identity on its own in that way, which is pretty interesting. It's also cool that different archetypes will actually like affect like the real time aspect of battles itself too. So like you say you have like the pugilist archetype, it actually changed like your on field weapon in the action segments. So you can attack with like punches instead. Or like if you have like a certain job archetype, like a dragoon, you'll have like a spear instead. And then you have like different abilities. So it's oddly enough a more expanded, a way more expanded like what Kuro or Daybreak does with its real time aspect and its battle system.
And
So that
Atlas
that
revealed released like a big gameplay demonstration showing a
yeah,
lot of that with the on-field like action gameplay, and then the battle like you described as kind of more press turny gameplay. Talk about synthesis, like you can do like combination attacks based on the
right.
um, archetypes that are present in the party. And then there's a lot of enemies that are shown. My favorite is that there's like these goblins. They look like they're numerous and not that hard because there's lots of them, but they're like jacked as shit. There's like jacked up goblins, like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
hell yeah.
I love the fishmen. Like it's like half of them is like a fish, like the top half of a fish, and then but they have like human legs. And I'm like,
Oh
hell yeah, that's a peak character or enemy design
yeah,
right there.
they're the reverse mermaid.
Yeah. So
But
I think like the more they've shown of this, the more I've really grown interested in this game. Okay, they're trying to create something really special.
I basically I try to like circle one game per month, and this is my October game.
Yeah.
Unless
Remember when we
unless
said that
Nintendo announces like Xenoblade 4 or something like that.
It's like it's October,
Well,
by the way.
well,
It's
well,
like, oh
that's the
god.
thing about Nintendo is that they're gonna have a Nintendo Direct sometime in June, and they're gonna say these bangers are releasing in 2 months. Like that's how it always goes. So we'll
remember
see.
what we said. We said that people are gonna get filtered by the battle theme before.
Oh well, you
I,
can just use
I,
the
I
game
think that is my
whatever
one like
tunes you want.
worry. That is my one worry with metaphors. Like they like when it shows like the menus throughout the game in that extended gameplay this demonstration, it's like a lot of like loud chanting and yelling. I'm like, dude, I don't want like intense yelling and chanting as I'm just trying to like menu through the game. I'm like trying to decide my party composition, and you just have this dude going, oh my god, boy.
I still would take that over the Xenoblade free method, where every battle theme became the chain battle theme, or when you open the menu, it becomes the menu theme. And then you can't hear the fucking background music.
Yeah, that I mean, yeah, I mean, for sure, but I don't know. There has to be
Yeah,
some balance. Like,
at
let me
least the
be a little
chain
bit
attack theme
chill
was a
during the
banger.
menus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But yeah, Metaphor
I'm yeah,
ReFantazio, a lot of details, a lot of cool news. We have the extended gameplay video shows everything you'd possibly want to see in terms of how the
yeah.
game looks and plays. So give that a look at uh, up on the site. We did also get a look for a game, one of the very first games that had a release date this year. This is Black Myth Wukong. This is from Game Science, one of the first games that was at least outwardly advertised as being powered by Unreal Engine 5 last year in December. They said they were going to be releasing on August 20th. I remember it was like the very furthest date out, and I said, no way it hits August 20th. I showed back up at Summer Games Fest, and they said, yep, Black Myth Wukong is releasing on August 20th. The one update that they said is that the Xbox release will come after the PC and PlayStation 5 release uh, to meet the quality standards. interpret that how you will. So PlayStation and PC still August 20th, Xbox undated at some point after. The trailer itself is mostly a cinematic trailer. They show a number of creatures, but mostly it's the protagonist walking. He pulls a piece of like a twig out of his ear that turns into a spear. Sounds like I made it up, but I didn't. But that's where he gets his weapons from. And then he at the end he is facing like four giant like golem things.
Yeah, and
Or
if
really
you're
cool.
looking for like a physical copy for this game, like that's like that you can get a physical copy of this game. It's like only like special editions, like a deluxe edition and a collector's edition. That'll have like a bunch of goodies that I listed on the article for it. But I think the weirdest thing about the delay on the Xbox is like it was very unclear in the press release itself whether it was gonna get delayed because they mentioned that verbatim on the press release that we got. Note that a release date for the physical edition or editions is pending. So one, we don't know we don't know what the release date for the physical editions are necessarily, and the release timing for the Xbox Series XS version will be disclosed at a later time. And on its face, that doesn't really tell you whether it's delayed or they're just gonna like reveal it, like maybe re-reveal it at the Xbox showcase, since that's around the corner from when we're recording. So you actually have to go to the official website Q&A for them to explicitly say, we're delaying it. It's like, okay, why couldn't you just say that in the press release? So it was just like a really weird mishap. Got that all sorted out. Hopefully the delay isn't too for Xbox players.
And apparently, it is playable behind closed doors at Summer Games Fest. So I don't know if Adam or James are going to be able to get on that, but it'd be really cool if they did. And if they're able to talk about it, we'll
Yeah.
report on it back here. I believe this other one was also on the show floor. Was that Kingdom Come Deliverance II? Did that show up on the
Yeah,
keylocker?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's Summer
that
Games
was there.
Fest. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we got a new trailer for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Of course, this was formally announced and got a release window back in April. It's slated to release this year. We don't have a very specific date. So the trailer we got at Summer Games Fest, they call it the Saints and Sinners trailer. It is basically a story trailer for the game. It focuses on Henry, and what I've researched is another character named Hans, who was an
Mhm.
important character in the first game. I've not played the first game,
Yeah.
but the trailer almost frames it like two protagonists. But all the press release says that Henry is protagonist and Hans is just your bro. So that's how
Yeah.
I'm interpreting it. The trailer also features a character called Father Godwin, who I looked up is also a character from the first game. So very clearly a game that is a sequel. I know that sounds like dirt, but uh,
Huge.
yeah. But so it makes
Breaking
me
news.
what I'm saying though is that makes me like I don't know if they stated explicitly like it's a very boilerplate FAQ. Can you enjoy this without playing the first game? And the publisher and developer is always encouraged to say, "Of course you can," sort of thing. But it makes me personally, if I want to play the second game, like I really should play the first for multiple reasons, not only just the story, but just to see like what their how the scope has changed or their aspirations from game to game. But the trailer shows a fair bit of gameplay from the first person perspective, cutscenes, it kind of
Yeah.
it's a good trailer.
Yeah. I'm still trying to get over how much more handsome Henry looks in the sequel. He looks like an innocent lad, baby face in the first game, and now he's like all more grown up. Like, oh Henry, how you've grown.
The next trailer that we got was released a few days before the Summer Games Fest. This is for SteamWorld Heist II, which was first released back in April. So this trailer is extended gameplay. It talks a little bit about how the game is set up, a little bit about the overworld exploration, and then goes into a lengthy kind of demo of an early game heist, an early game mission. So for someone like me who didn't really know like how does this game actually play, it answers that question from the
Yeah.
on the side perspective. It's kind of framed a lot like a tactical game, like from what I would typically my brain puts as an isometric perspective, only from the side view, in terms of using abilities that have certain areas of effect, positioning from your character against the enemies, different gear that has different like trajectories or reach. It talks about doing two different characters and kind of the different ways you can outfit them early in the game, how bounties work. things like that. So just it's a gameplay overview for those that aren't familiar with SteamWorld Heist, like myself, kind of gives you like, oh, that's kind of what this game looks like and plays like. So that was published earlier this week, and again, the game is coming out in August, so about 2 months from today. Here's an update that was posted for Megaton Musashi Wired from level 5. This was published on their website as a big news blog, I believe, for the 3.1 version update. And as far as I can tell, Josh, this update isn't dated, but it is intended to come soon. I went through the
Yeah,
post and I couldn't find a date, but they're saying, as far as I can tell, here's what we have planned for the update, but we don't know quite when it'll launch yet.
yeah, pretty much. And it's kind of like the previous releases of Megaton Musashi, that were only in Japan. They continue support throughout the lifestyle span of this game, like just more new stages and content and stuff like that. So it's nice to see them just doing this with this release because it's already filled to the brim with like a shit little content, but they're adding more new, like two more new robots, rogues, that are fairly late game, like end game, where you can start obtaining them. New end game boss fights. One of the pain points for players who spent a lot of time with it is like there's this Megaton 2 difficulty. Um, that was like difficult to ramp up to because like once you have a mech that can deal with Megaton 1, like just the regular Megaton difficulty. Like even if you got to, like the later stages of that, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're set up for success in Megaton 2. Like the first stage of Megaton 2, like you'll probably not deal enough damage and get timed out, and you're like, well, what went wrong? Why was I like not prepared for this at all? And it takes kind of like a bit of fiddling at the moment to kind of properly get equipment that's powerful enough for that difficulty, and there's even more difficulties beyond that. So the part of the major one of the major things in this upcoming version update is to introduce stages that are on the lower end of Megaton 2 to start getting you properly geared and prepared for them. Which is, it's good to see 'cause that's
I
kind
think
of like
that's really
it's a big
smart
goal.
on its face because there's always it always kind of feels like you got to go bigger, you got to go harder. Here's the new super duper boss, but instead they're like, yeah, we're gonna add some new things, but also we're gonna add a few that are in the highest tier of difficulty, but on the lower end of that, just to help make the ramp smoother.
Yeah,
Like that just seems very cognizant of player feedback. It just seems
yeah,
like really player focused. Like, okay, instead of just keep putting the hat on a hat and just make it harder and harder and bigger, like, okay, let's take some feedback and actually like kind of smooth out the edges both on the lower and the higher end. So I think
yeah. They've
just
been really good.
speaking,
Yeah, they've been
yeah.
really good at just listening to feedback. Yeah, so much appreciated. So it's good to see. So yeah, uh, continue to pray for the ongoing success of that game.
And then here's a tiny little update. A planned release for September is Reynatis. Reynatis is being developed by Natsume Atari, published by Furyu, has drawn a lot of comparisons to Versus 13, Virum Rex, whatever Nomura has wanted to publish but couldn't, etc. It was announced back in May that Reynatis would have a crossover with Neo: The World Ends With You. So that information is not new. The new information from June 3rd is that they published a new trailer that shows the crossover characters. So basically, your favorite World Ends With You 2 characters in Reynatis in that art style. Though they don't show the main character. I didn't play Neo: The World Ends With You, but the main character they only tease, um, which is a choice, I suppose. But I guess
It's
that way
okay.
they keep it.
It's okay. Everyone loves Shoka, so as long as Shoka shows up, everyone's good.
Hmm. And then also speaking about Square Enix, this is kind of a surprise and kind of not. And we've talked about this in different contexts throughout the last couple of years. The Octopath Traveler series and Square Enix's initial refusal to have any consistency on their release platforms. So obviously there was the press release, shareholder meeting from a couple months back, where President Kiryu of Square Enix has mentioned that they are adopting a more multi-platform strategy. Of course, a couple days after that, we saw that the Kingdom Hearts games moved from Epic over to Steam, and kind of following in that same vein, two headlines here: Octopath Traveler is now available on PlayStation 4 and 5. Remember, Octopath Traveler, the original game, had never released on PlayStation. It was Switch exclusive and then got moved to PC and then Xbox. Octopath Traveler 2, opposite, never made its way to Xbox, is now available on Xbox. So Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 is now available on all the platforms. Finally.
Yeah, it's
Staggered release is finally coming to an end.
I think I stated all those things correctly, but it was such a weird puzzle pieces about what was available where and why and when.
yeah.
But now it
Octopath
seems
Traveler
like
2 is also available on Game Pass. And then they put back the first Octopath Traveler 1 up on Game Pass as well to celebrate. I think it's gonna be both of them are gonna be up till like January of next year, I believe, on Game Pass. And then the first Octopath Traveler is available at a discount for PlayStation Plus members for like $40 USD. So yeah, I mean, once again, if we thought Square Enix was done with shadow dropping, and then here we are, just bam bam shadow drop both of them, just wipe their hands clean. It's like, all right, we did it. Don't bug us anymore.
yeah.
So I mean, they're there at least. That's great.
I mean,
It's kind of
I don't know how much credit I get. They did say Octopath Traveler 2 was
yeah.
coming to Xbox a long time ago, and they never followed up until, yep, it's there now. So,
And also like, and they're also selling the first Octopath Traveler at full price, $60 on PlayStation. Just like, eh, maybe wait for a discount. I don't know. There's also like a bundle for them on PlayStation for like $70 or $80. I forget. Yeah, I mean, at least they're there. I guess
yeah,
it's nice to have.
it feels more like a correction, where it's like, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, but I guess now it's finally there. So, right.
they're great.
But yeah, Octopath Traveler 2 especially was a game that, I don't, obviously it's painting with a broad brush, but generally we thought very highly of. Octopath Traveler 1 obviously was the first of its type of kind of
Oh, that
the
that reminds me. They released a stealth update for Octopath Traveler 2 this week that
oh yeah,
added like new endgame boss fights as well. So like you can challenge like the party members of the first Octopath Traveler in Octopath Traveler 2 as like endgame super bosses.
I think that's how people kind of figure out. It's like, oh, it's coming to Xbox to that patch or something like that. That's what people were thinking.
So yeah, for people who really crave more challenging boss fights in at endgame Octopath 2, there's new ones for you.
You just gotta find a broken game setup. That's kind of like the meta of this game. Right? If you can't figure that out, it's like they're pretty brutal.
all right. I feel bad doing this. Please don't shoot me. But the next
Mhm,
4 games that we're going to talk about, I binned together and I call them Souls likes, because these are games
uh-huh.
that when I see them, I shouldn't admit this, but sometimes I have trouble keeping them apart. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to detail what each of these games are with specific game bespoke details so I can talk about them each in turn without conflating them. So, in no particular order, the first one is that we got a new trailer for Phantom Blade Zero. This is being published and developed by S Game. It was originally shown last year during the PlayStation Showcase. It showed back up this year during the Summer Games Fest Showcase. And I guess, I said Souls-like, but this looks more like a Sekiro or a Wolong like with a much
Yeah,
faster.
it's kind of interesting. It has like the pace of like a Ninja Gaiden. Really, it's
Yeah.
very fast and decisive. But it has like the flashiness of like Bujingai on PS2. I don't know why I think of Bujingai, but I think of Flashy Kong. I think of Bujingai. So it actually looked really really cool. Like I was really really impressed. This new trailer was the one that closed out the Summer Games Fest showcase, and
Mm.
everyone was pretty stunned at what they had to show. Like it was a really really strong way to close out that show. I think
And
everyone who
they're
saw
not.
this trailer was like, oh yeah,
Uh,
I'm interested.
and I know I'm beating a dead horse here and I'm repeating myself, but they're not afraid to show the UI. Like you can actually see like
Yeah.
health bars, stamina bars with the item that the player that the trailer is actually playing has equipped. It's like, hell yeah, show me that shit. But
Yeah.
they did also say they're calling this a worldwide tour. The game is basically going to be playable at Summer Games Fest, which I believe Adam and James have stated they intend to see. So we'll see if they go
Hopefully, I
get
hope
going with
so.
it. It's going to be at Gamescom, TGS. So basically, it sounds like they're really ramping up marketing with a game that is in a playable state. So
I wonder
no,
when this releases. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so it's
say
in a playable
about
state,
November.
clearly.
My
Yeah,
guess.
I wouldn't be surprised. It seems like it's something that is not that far away. Um,
Mhm.
so maybe a Q1 next year sort of game. Uh, we'll
Yeah,
see.
I
The
wonder, I
trailer was
wonder, I wonder if it's holiday this year or Q1 next year because I would not like if this game came out around Monster Hunter Wilds time. That would not make me happy. Let's say.
I don't
I
know.
do like
Maybe
how
2025 could be 2024 again.
one of the
Big stack release all
characters,
in the first 2 months.
one of the enemies that is being fought in the trailer, it has like katana stilts.
Yeah, I love
It's
that enemy. Like that. There's a lot of cool enemy designs in that game, but that one really, of course, stood out, and they really wanted you to see that one. It's like
mhm.
this lady who like walks around a katana. Still, it's like all right. So she's like, and like the animation was crazy. It's
Yeah,
it's very very cool.
I feel like I'm getting Stellar Blade vibes for the combat here, though. That's kind of
Mhm,
like my impression of it. But
yeah.
it's like a lot of
Yeah.
those quick like QTE prompts. It's like it feels like Stellar Blade to me.
I have to admit the QTE props look kind of bad. To be honest, they kind of stick out like a sore thumb. I have to imagine there's like not finalized UI. I hope so.
Yeah,
But
I hope they
that
shrink that gigantic triangle that you see
yeah
like right there. It's man.
yeah. But other than that, it was a really good showing for the game.
yeah, it looks really cool. The next one is a game we've talked about a few times over the last couple months. Enotria, The Last Song. This is the Souls-like being developed by Italian studio Jamma Games. So there was a little bit of confusion about the release date, whether the Xbox version is coming with it. That was already announced. It's being released on September 19th for all platforms, with Epic Store being the PC storefront. So the trailer at the Summer Games
This is coming
Fest.
to Steam as well on
Oh, it
that date.
is.
Yes.
Oh, it's Steam and
Yeah.
Epic. Okay. The
Yeah.
the the trailer little thumbnail. I guess it does show both. Okay. My apologies. It is coming to both Steam and Epic. But yeah, coming out for September 19th. And then the trailer for Summer's Games Fest was primarily a cinematic trailer, so a little less interesting on its face, except that, it does have a slightly different art direction compared to like the Bloodborne, Deathbound, Souls-like. It's got like the conquistador.
It's hard to get a little like mad at having a cinematic trailer because there's an 8 hour demo on Steam still up
That's
on
true.
there.
And they did
So
also announce that that demo just got kind of a refresh with fixing bugs and performance.
yeah, good on them on that.
I don't know about content, but basically they just said, "Hey, we have a demo available. It's been available for a month, but we've updated it." So not quite early access in name, but kind of close, honestly.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean there's a lot of content in that, so I
And then,
imagine so.
yeah, I don't have the details here, but they're apparently within the demo. They've allowed, they have some sort of contest or speed runs or leaderboards set up where you can win prizes. I think some of
Oh,
the
cool.
prizes include game keys or T-shirts. I don't know the details here, but they've kind of put that into their,
That's fun, community
yeah,
events.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. And then also, if you pre-order, you get 72-hour early access, of course.
Oh
It
yeah.
might only be the deluxe version, but some versions of the game you do have access to the game early, depending on how much you pay.
Mm,
Also, I do
okay.
like how one of the masks shown in the cinematic trailer is like got the super twirly mustache like wig.
Yeah, they seem to have like a lot of fun designs. Like this is definitely feels like a passion project for them, and for me, I like to root for the underdog. So I really hope it is successful and it turns out to be a great game.
Yeah, based on the other ones, I would say that this one is the most visually distinct, but that's not true. A game we'll talk about later is a little bit more visually distinct, but this one does have kind of an art style of its own, so it doesn't quite blend in as much as some of the other ones. So that is Phantom Blade Zero and Anatria: The Last Song. The third out of the four we're going to talk about is Deathbound. Now, Deathbound, the way that it works differently is that it has been described and marketed as a party-based Souls-like. What this is that you pick four characters that they use the word morph between them during combat, and they call it like morph abilities, morph strikes. Like that's the crux of the gameplay is how this works. And these characters, the new trailer from this week is called an overview trailer. The overview trailer talks about how the morphing system works, how each of the characters you're changing between has it frames it like they have their own thoughts and beliefs and kind of morals. And somehow it doesn't describe it in detail, but somehow these come into play when choosing your party. Like certain characters, if you decide to outfit the four they have access to, will synergize or not synergize as well. It says bonuses or penalties, so that's kind of interesting. And then the gameplay shows, of course, the player morphing between characters. There's some sort of sync mechanic based on how effectively you use the different abilities in some way. Um, so, and if you like freeze frame the trailer, it talks about like, oh, this penalty is minus 10% movement speed because these two characters have different views on science and faith. So things like that. So
That's
some
funny.
interesting kind of wrinkles there. And then the trailer does show like I've kind of been harping on lots of UI, lots of gameplay, a few cutscenes as well. So no release date for this except that it is slated to come out this year. Similar to Enotria, coming out on everything, though on PC it will additionally be on GOG. So it's coming out Steam, GOG, and Epic for PC.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and a demo is currently available. Don't know
Okay.
if that's the feedback on that, but there is a demo on the Steam page that's available now. This third one is the newest one, and this is the one that's likely furthest out. This is from a studio called Pasto Alpha, which is a Japanese indie studio. This game is called Witch of Oblivion. It is slated for Steam Early Access next year, and we got the official kind of announcement trailer for it this week. And I was looking at the press release to try to describe this. You play as a witch who basically is a fire mage who doesn't have complete control over her powers. I don't think it talks about you need to maintain like minimizing collateral damage and things like that. And then also, I was reading the press release. I like this. You have to keep an eye on her energy levels during exploration and battle, lest she'll suffer a narcoleptic need for sleep that will transport her to the last tree she visited. So
Dang,
you're
it's just
so
like me.
I'm just like, I like that. That's relatable. So she has a burst of energy. She goes out and gets as much done as she can until she needs a nap.
That's
So
right.
I don't know. That just seems kind of fun. So this has a it's not cell shaded, I don't think, but it has kind of more of that 3D animated art style. So very visually distinct compared to the other games. But still also like a lot of the art looks a little bit early, but that's I'm not criticizing that. The game's coming into early access next year is the plan. So a little bit of the furthest out, but this is a decent first look at the game. I do like how in the trailer she's yawning and falling asleep while like fire comes in from around her. So that's kind of how they're really teeing up what this character is. Uh, so yeah, and again, that's Witch of Oblivion. So kind of a silly premise in a genre that doesn't always take itself so silly. It
Mhm.
takes itself more
Yeah,
seriously. So I don't know. It's kind of a fun little niche to kind of nest your indie game into.
I like that.
And we'll kind of keep going on the indie front here. A lot of these are games that we've talked about kind of at length as they've been announced in previous years, but this year they have a few new information or a new demo available. We talked a little bit about Keylocker. So Keylocker is slated to come out this summer. It's now available or will be available on Switch as well as the other platforms, and we'll have a demo available with the Steam Next Fest. This one is actually a game. I misspoke. This is actually a game, this next one, that we have not talked before. It is a side scroller beat 'em up RPG called Immortal Hunters, and it is now available as a demo on Steam. It was shown in the Guerrilla Collective streaming event a couple days ago. So this is very much like arcade multiplayer beat 'em up. Like I always associate it with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I'm sure there's other less silly comparisons to make. But get three bros, work your way left to right as distinct characters fighting hordes of monsters. The art style here is very like Western comic booky. Looks pretty fun. Kind of like a grimdark setting for it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
slated again, also slated to come out this summer, but has a demo available now. So kind of similar with Keylocker. Here's a game that you were able to go, I believe. I'm not sure if it was hands-on with, but you
Yeah.
talked about this game last PAX West. This is
Mhm.
Demon School, a game very similar to Keylocker, where we've been covering this game with kind of incremental updates for a few years now. This is the game that's been compared to things such as, darn it, I feel
I
like
mean,
I'm
OG
comparing.
Persona, maybe.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
like yeah, Persona
I
1,
remember
Shin Megami Tensei, yeah.
I remember before I said it seems similar to Persona 1 and 2, I think, and then someone said, well, actually, a more better comparison was something else, but I don't quite remember what it was.
Man, I
Uh,
don't know.
yeah, but anyways, yeah, yeah, it's got more of a tactical, like grid-based gameplay style to it. And the trailer from this year's update, is called Meet the Students. And the idea here is that it talks about the playable characters, Faye, Newt, Namako, and Destin. It talks about their roles, the abilities they can do in combat, and very specifically, like in the grid-based combat system, here's how their ability works, how many allies or enemies it affects, etc. So kind of going into like the final polish of mechanics being sorted out and how the animations work and how the game's actually going to like be balanced and things
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
it's an interesting game because you cannot move diagonally in that game. It's only oh, like
Far away
Cardinal
grid.
directions, or to call it.
yeah, pretty much yeah, cardinal directions. So you really have to like think about like your placement in the game more so than like most other strategy RPGs that allow for more freeform and movement. So I'm looking forward to see how the final game shapes up. It does look pretty cool. Has a really great art style going for it.
I feel it looks a little different from this current trailer. Did they change up the visual a bit, or I'm just misremembering things?
That depends on when the last time you've seen it because it's been in development for a while, so they might have
Yeah,
done
it
some
would be
tweaks.
interesting to pull up a trailer from like 2020, 2024 to see how it's refined.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it will get a new demo a couple days from the time of recording. So by the time you listen to this, likely already up with the Steam Next Fest, so it'll get an updated demo. Another game that's getting a demo with the Steam Next Fest. This is a game we've covered once before. It is called Sky Oceans Wings for Hire. This is being published by PQ by a developer called Octecto Studios. And this is a game that is very explicitly and outwardly being described as a love letter to Skies of Arcadia. That very clearly that is their inspiration. They want another game of that style, of that flavor, and then that's what Sky Oceans Wings for Hire is trying to hit. It does, however, have a much different art style. It has an art style that's kind of Wind Waker-ish. It's not quite chibi, but it's stylized. I'm not. Maybe there's a better point of comparison, but that's what my brain is
Yeah,
going to.
yeah. I mean, like the actual art style itself, like in terms like not the 3D models, is like sort of like a Saturday morning cartoon. But in
Mhm.
terms like like you said, it is more like a GameCube anime era esque type of aesthetic in terms of like the in-game visuals. That's where
It's
my
kind of
mind.
hilarious. Like when everyone when they see this certain self shaded, they always call it GameCube era. It's like that new Hunter X Hunter. It
It,
was like
I mean, it is reminiscent. Like there definitely was like a niche of that of those titles at GameCube. It's like it just you just kind of your mind kind of drifts to that. It's like yeah, kind of.
I think it's an art style that really kind of lends itself well to sub HD. Obviously, this game is coming out for PC and PS5, but it's that sort of art style for it. Though I don't know if I'm gelling with the 2D art that much, and that's just a personal thing. I'm just not sure I like the design on a personal
Mhm.
level. Like they've got kind of like the red triangle noses that makes everyone look like they have a cold. That's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, that makes
so
sense.
it's kind of got that Western, I don't know, Cal Arts animation style to it, Cartoon Network sort of thing, which it might look good in gameplay, but just from the trailer, that's just a personal thing. But in terms of whether it hits the feel of Skies of Arcadia, I think it kind of does. It shows a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like spaceship or skyship dogfighting and customization, and of course that's a big
Yeah,
component
yeah.
of the game as well.
The turn-based battle sounds like all your party members like on like their separate like ships like dogfighting
Hmm.
planes.
Hmm.
So you and then you have different ways to like customize their planes, and then there's like a relationship system as well. There's even like different like mood statuses and so forth. So that provide status boosts and all that stuff. So you know, they seem to have like a very ambitious ideas for the game. Hopefully, it all comes together. They haven't provided a specific trailer, but it's coming out for pretty much all modern platforms. And there's gonna be they're gonna be part of a Steam Next Fest, so a demo for it will be coming soon.
Continuing on with games that have demos, this next one is a game that we first covered a couple years ago when its first demo came out. That is a game called Kriegsfront Tactics, being developed by Toad Productions. So we first covered this game on our website in January 2020, where it was described as a procedural turn-based mecha tactics RPG. So my brain goes to Front Mission,
Hmm.
with a little bit better, I guess, production values. So we haven't covered it since then, though I'm sure there have been incremental updates for those who've been following the game directly. The big news here, the reason why we're covering it again here in 2024, is that they have said they're creating a new trailer that they're calling the prologue trailer. And the reason
No,
why
no,
they're
it's
having this,
it's a new vertical slice. It's a new demo, not trailer.
sorry, I said trailer, but my brain meant demo, a new demo. Yeah, the
Yeah.
prologue demo. There is a new trailer as well. And the reason why they wanted to do a prologue demo is that because it's going to be more focused on the RPG aspects. And this is from the developer. When we say RPG, we're not talking just about stats and levelings. We're talking about world, character stories, narrative elements. So the new demo, it seems like they've got an existing demo been out since 2022 that is specifically more about the gameplay combat, and the new demo is more focused on teeing up as a vertical slice of the narrative, which of course will integrate into the gameplay and combat. So I kind of like that. They're just saying, hey, we're ready, and we've been working on the game for a few years now. We're going to have a different vertical slice that shows off another aspect of the game more clearly. So my understanding is that when this demo comes out, it won't be available until July. So they've announced this demo a little bit early. But my understanding is that come July 18th, the game will have two available demos: a combat focused one and this prologue demo, which will be kind of a narrative focused one. So I
Yeah,
think
that's my
that's very
understanding.
interesting for
Hmm.
for a tactical RPG.
Yeah, I've had this game on my radar for feels like forever. So hopefully it really comes together. Like it's like after I've been really very lukewarm, let's say, on the front mission remakes. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping this properly scratches that itch because I haven't really been that impressed with the other efforts on the front mission, the other front mission remakes.
They better not
Uh,
fuck up free if they ever plan on remaking that.
they do plan on remaking that. Let's just say I'm not very optimistic that they're gonna
Oh
nail it.
man,
Yeah, but yeah, this game looks really cool. They have a really interesting art style, aesthetic, and just presentation. So hoping for the best. Really cool.
And this last game doesn't have a demo, but is now available in early access, so you can play it. This is a side-scrolling roguelike called Dragon is Dead. So kind of like that 2D. I'm not sure, like when you talk about like a 2D Souls, like I'm not sure like what is the point of comparison, because there's been so many. I'm not sure which ones have landed more than others. But this is like Dread Delusion, not Dread Delusion. That was the other May game. Dark Devotion was one that I played a few years back,
Mm.
but this game kind of has that same sort of aesthetic. Talks about, of course, like the gearing system through the roguelike, repeating boss fights, etc. It has a character that looks like Dark Souls 3 boss with like the flowing white mane. It's I don't know. This is out of all the games we talked about, this is the one that it is available in early access, so you can play it. But it is the one that has, I think, visually, it's the hardest to pick out of a crowd. And I try not to say that like for a game that's being developed, but
Yeah, but it's like everyone's is striving towards like a similar idea. So it is sometimes kind of gets that unfortunate. Suffers that unfortunate like, hey, it's hard to have a visual identity when there's so much on the market.
yeah, and
Like it's
trying to thread that needle to something that no one else has quite done. So if anyone here has time with the early access, and we can kind of pull out what this game is doing well, uh, and maybe at that point we can say, oh, this is what this game does that the other ones haven't quite done. This is again Dragon is Dead, available on Steam now. Doesn't have a slated full release window, and it is set right now as a budget title, so it's 19.99 to get into the early access. So we'll see kind of what the reception is on Steam for this game, and keep our eye out on it. And this last one, this was one that you just covered earlier today. I probably could have put this up with some of the earlier announcements, Tribe 9 and Neon Blood. So
Mhm.
this is a game called Abyss Cross Zero, or Abyss X Zero. It is from Studio Pixel Punk, the same studio that did Unsighted. And this is a game that it's an action RPG that is coming to PC at some point. This is an announcement trailer for it. It has kind of like that Mega Man Legends like 3D art style to it, only in better fidelity. And
Yeah, it's like primarily they describe it as like a 3D Metroidvania, but there's definitely like work in progress footage that showed like, hey, there's actually like RPG elements to it, like pretty significant ones. It is coming to PC, but there's also other unannounced platforms, so they haven't revealed those yet. We don't know any sort of a release date or window as of yet. But what they've shown so far seems really, really promising. Like I think they've knocked it out of the park in terms of like what they wanted to show for this game.
It
So
totally captures that Mega Man Legend art style when you're
yeah,
playing.
yeah. So and then you take control of two different characters, Codename A and Codename Z, and there's sort of like from opposite sides that are like meant to fight each other. So, yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like a nice early look at that game. So like this wasn't the reveal trailer. There's like they call it the official premiere trailer, but they revealed this game before like several months ago. But we just didn't know whether it was like really in our scope. And then after they showed off more of the game, like through development behind the scenes, I'm like, I think it falls in our range.
Mm-hmm. And that was a lot of trailers that we just went through. So lots of exciting stuff on the horizon, and a lot of it's not quite dated yet, but a lot of it is slated for 2024. So things
That's not
being
even the end
crowded
of
real
it.
quickly.
There's still more games to put up, and then there's still the Xbox showcase, the PC gaming show,
And
Ubisoft,
then whatever the hell Nintendo's going to show. So yeah.
Nintendo Dragon Age, whatever that
Yeah,
is.
yeah, this is basically part one. Next week we will be back with basically another onslaught of announcements, probably. So look forward
Yeah,
to that. But we decided
yeah.
to hold this podcast anyways, so that we would not be absolutely swarmed next week. But we probably still will be. So to start on the downslope of the end of this podcast, we do have a couple more dates run down here for a few other updates. Oh, this one I was going to talk about this one back with Metaphor ReFantazio, but then it slipped my mind. We did finally get a official date for the Persona 3 episode Aigis DLC. We already knew it was coming. It was part of their season pass, which has mostly been cosmetics. It was slated for December. Atlas has officially announced that episode Aigis is set for September 10th.
Mm.
I read in Universe that September 10th is Aigis' like official canon birthday, or I don't know if that's true or not, and whether or not it matters. But if it does, I guess that's neat.
Is that the canon birthday for Aigis, Chow? I don't remember. I
I
hope you
Yeah.
noticed.
I have no idea.
All right, I'm
I
gonna
thought
type it in
Chow would know.
Google. I'm gonna type it in Google
I
and
own
see
a lot of Aegis
what does AI
figures.
tell me.
Yeah, Aigis birthday. What does
September
it say?
10th, 1999. That's what Google
Dang.
Um,
tells me. It's got
I
to be
own a
true.
lot of Aegis figures, but it's like I don't pay attention to like fictional characters' birthday, except for March 7th. That's the only one I know because that's their name. And
The only people I know that's the only characters I pay attention to are the ones that have my birthday. Like I know Akihiko from Persona 3 has my birthday.
damn,
So that one I'll order because I like Akihiko and I like my birthday, I guess. I mean,
yeah, but
yeah.
like for me, I personally don't know like fictional characters' birthdays. It feels like it's just like some trivial thing to me because it could be just like some random date,
Uh,
right?
And then
Look,
I think most people listening to this is aware, but just in case, episode I guess is for Persona 3 Reload, the rebranding of what was originally called Persona 3 The Answer. So it's an epilogue story arc featuring Aigis. So the answer is now episode Aigis in for the Reload remake. I know it's been a little bit contentious. It's a lot more dungeon focused and a lot less story focused. And depending on your just style and what you favor, some people really like that, some people really don't. So I think Adam
yeah,
falls on really liking it. I'm not sure where
yeah,
you fall,
me and
Josh.
Adam are fine with it. I think there's like just some fundamental like
I
bad
absolutely loaf
gameplay.
it. That's me.
There's like some bad gameplay parts about it. Like, for example, like a lot of the bosses of that game are in and the answer have like elemental weaknesses, but they also like if they also have the skill to evade their weakness. So like if they're weak to ice, obviously you want to hit them with ice attacks, but they have a skill evade ice. So
Like
it's
might
like
as well not be a weakness at that point,
it's like
right?
God
It's just
damn
like
it. It's like yeah, and that makes it really frustrating because like a lot of those bosses are not pushovers. They're very threatening.
yeah, this
And
game makes the original game look like a joke when it comes to
yeah,
difficulty, in my opinion.
so
And imagine playing the original version when you can't control the AI.
yeah, it was brutal. So yeah, it was. We'll see what they do on that front. I'm pretty interested to see how they adapt it. I'm kind of. I don't want them to make it easy because reload is. It's like I fall asleep sometimes when I play reload.
Did you went and beat Reload recently?
I didn't finish reload yet. I just think I just so
But,
mind-numbingly easy that it's just like it's hard to get
but
excited.
you
But
get what I'm saying. It's so much
yeah,
easier than the
it's
original. It's
really yeah, it's really easy. Like man, it's like I didn't
like
play on hard mode. It's like
I think you cannot get like the original difficulty back unless you set to merciless mode. I think that's how it works. I think,
Just
but
uh,
at that point you're like,
yeah. So
I
we'll see. We'll see what they do with the answer. Reload's okay. I have my gripes with it. It's
I'm
okay.
gonna be the guy that's gonna set this game to very easy mode just because I hate this game and I just want to get through it as
Yeah,
fast as possible.
and then and I won't spoil what the story is, but there's definitely some odd story
Questionable moment.
moments. Odd story moments in the answer. It's like, all right, I guess. Let's say our main character got a lot more haters because of that character's um, decisions in the original answer.
I
So,
feel like she's not the only culprit. Even some other
I mean,
characters
I'm
kind
not. I
of
won't say.
fall into
Yeah, I
that
won't say it's the.
problem.
I won't say it's only that character, but
Some character will be like, "Oh yeah, I totally support you," but wait, this is like totally against what your morals
uh,
in the original game.
uh,
Like,
that's all we'll say. So we'll see what they do for this new release of the answer. To be
yeah, well, I'm
very
sure some
interesting.
people are looking forward to it.
Couple other updates. As of the day we're recording, Dungeons of Hinterberg, which is a RPG slash social sim set in the Alps, which is slated to release later this summer in July, has now a playable demo on Steam as of June 8th. So you can go ahead and play through a single in-game day in that game.
Mhm.
Honkai Star Rail is getting its version 2.3 update in late June, June 19th, called Farewell Penacony. Penacony? Pinacani. I have no
Pinocchio.
idea how to pronounce it. Pinaconi. Coney. Okay, what is that?
That's
It,
the world that you're in the second version point, and the story just kind of concluded. But I don't think it's kind of concluded. It's kind of like a jailbait ending. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, like you thought this is the end, but no, it's not. I think you know.
you
So
just described that
I,
as jailbait?
I think switch and bait. I think that's what I
Oh
mean.
yeah, switch and
Okay.
bait. Yeah, that makes sense. The
Bait.
other one
Okay.
not good. The other one not good.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
Words are wrong.
very
Okay.
good. Yeah, good
All right.
correction.
And it introduces the character Firefly.
Yes, this is what every person is saying the roles are for. She is like this girl that you kind of met on a date, and then she gets killed, but she doesn't really get killed, and then there's all this thing to it, and everyone like just falls in love with this character, and she also gets to transform into a robot using and like into like a common rider kind of thing, and people just loves this character. She's
Yeah,
clearly like
she seems like Honkai Star Rail's like golden child right now. Um,
uh, it totally like looks like Destiny Gundam, like the way it looks with the
yeah, I've
like
seen
the
footage.
laser
Yeah,
wings.
yeah. So
But yeah,
they also show like a new like animated trailer at the Summer Games Fest, like teasing her. So people are just waiting for a date on when her banner's gonna go up, so they can go all out pretty much.
the Summer Game Fest also had like another trailer too. They had like this trailer for like March 7th,
Oh
where
yeah,
she like switched to a different path. Like now she
is
can be a
she
hunt.
okay? So it's like it's not a new outfit that they're selling. It's like an actual gameplay thing. I thought it
Yeah,
was just
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Now
okay.
she could like focus on the path of the hunt. I think people were disappointed because she's just a 4-star. I think people were hoping that it would be like a 5-star, and now it's like, oh, it's 4-star. She can't be mad at this point. It's who knows? I mean, this game I have not found a single characters to be bad. They all come useful in some different ways. Even like the worst character at the beginning of the game, like Herta, she turns out to be like the most broken character for like this different mode, like this different endgame mode. So it's like
Hmm,
every character has their use in this game. So can't be bad.
okay. And people are saying that that the Honkai is going back to China. Are we going back to
They're
China and
going to
Honkai?
Lofu. They're going Lofu. Now you get to
Oh,
like
okay.
meet like this. I think they already like spoiled like the patch characters that are after this patch.
Okay.
Um, but the thing
Yeah.
is, there's lots of like story threads that are not left kind of solved in like in the space China, the Lofu.
Hmm.
So people were kind of upset about that back then, but maybe
Okay.
now it's finally resolved because it just goes back and you got like this kind of like sequel bait ending, and you're like, what the hell? It's like, and it's like, are we gonna go back there? Well, I
Yeah, yeah.
guess
I've
we
heard
are.
pretty divisive things because people are like, I don't want to go back to space China.
Yeah, I fucking hate Space China. No offense. The story kind of like sucks. You get like this villain that came out of nowhere with no build up, and then it's like it's over, and now we leave. It's like what?
Hmm.
It-
All right.
Pinocchio is good. I'll say that. It even
Okay.
steals a plot twist from Trails of Azure kind of thing, and
That's
that's what
funny.
a lot of people compares it to. But yeah,
Okay.
looking forward to getting out of Space China if we can.
Following up from talking about Space China, somehow, I wasn't expecting that. In September, we're going to get official mod support for Baldur's Gate 3. So I think they've stated that that's going to be like the last major update for Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh,
Then they're
okay.
going to be moving on to their whatever their next big project is. Larian has grown immensely, tremendously over the last couple of years. So they've got so
And
many
we
studios.
already mentioned they're moving away from Baldur's Gate. There's no Baldur's Gate
Yeah.
4 coming from them.
Mhm.
Not Larian specifically. They just
And
want
reading between the lines, it seems like, and this is just a conjecture, I don't know anything, is that the
yeah.
relationship between them and Wizards of the Coast has not been great. Like it was on one of the stage shows where basically Sven said like the people who the partnership was, agreed to it. So many of them weren't even there anymore. On Wizards side primarily, it seemed like. So not 100% sure what happened behind the scenes, but it seems like Larian is happy with just being one and done with Baldur's Gate, and I'm guessing, and Wizards of the Coast is eager to get someone else on board because they have a powerful IP on their hand and don't know what to do with it. So we'll see. But yeah, modding support, real cool. Kind of give the game infinite life, so to speak, coming in September.
Mhm.
Metal Slug Tactics, I mentioned this in passing earlier. This is a game that was announced a while ago, but like it originally planned to release in 2022. Then it got pushed back. Then it kind of went dark for a while. Uh, the developer, Lake Studio and Dotemu, have resurfaced, basically saying it is still planning to come out. It's slated for fall of this year, and they had a new trailer for it. In addition, they said it's not just coming to Switch and PC; it'll also be coming to PlayStation and Xbox, both last gen and current gen platforms. So supposedly it's alive and well, releasing on everything at some point this fall. So that's
Yeah, and then you're
good to
also gonna have
see.
a demo for it as part of Steam Next Fest. So people who are excited for it can get their hands on it very, very soon with the demo.
Mhm.
So that's cool to see. Well, hopefully that is awesome. So I've been looking forward to it. So I'm crossing my fingers.
Another game that kind of went dark and has resurfaced is Wizardry Variants Daphne. This is a mobile game set in the Wizardry IP, so very hardcore dungeon crawler that was set as a mobile game, announced in 2022 for release in 2023. It was later announced that it would come to Steam, so mobile and Steam. Did not hit its 2023 date. The Studio 2 Pro has announced that it will be releasing in October 2024 for the mobile version, which was the original version they announced. They are still planning on a Steam release that will release at some point after the mobile version. The studio on their Twitter page for the game has kind of been doling out little bite-sized updates and details about like things like auto movement in dungeons, how traps can be set, things like that. So still kind of plugging away at it. Didn't hit its original release window, but for those that want hardcore dungeon crawling on the go, be out at some point in October. And that's the whole list. Oh, I say that's the whole list, but there's a lot of games that we could have covered but didn't, that have kind of been shown or will be shown again throughout this weekend. Like I think on IGN there was kind of an introductory story trailer for Sacrifier, and I think Sacrifier is also going to show up on another streaming thing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just gonna be a lot of like they have their whole strategy planned out. Like some indie games will be like will show up on 2 to 3 streams, and
yeah,
all lots of different things. That's like it's there's a lot to kind of just
yeah.
go cover. pretty
Yeah,
much.
the developers behind Chris Tales have announced their turn-based RPG Prisma, but that might get another showing at the PC Game Show. Another RPG that was announced from a developer that I'm not familiar with, called Beloved Rapture, is now available on Steam with a demo alongside the Steam Next Fest slated for this year. There's a few others that we
Yeah,
might or might not cover once, because a lot of these things were like, is that an RPG? Is it not? Do we cover it? Do we want to cover it? Sort of thing. But yeah,
it's
so we have
challenges of
not
being a
been
genre site.
Yeah, so we have not covered everything exhaustively, but we have tried to hit all the highlights. And like I said, we will be following up next week with anything that we have slipped through the gaps this week, and of course everything that is yet to be announced. So if this was helpful, give us a thumbs up, give us a rating, give us a comment. We'd love to see those. Tune in next week where we're going to do the same thing again. Of course, thank you so much to Josh for holding down the fort on the site end. The reason why I can say we have these news posts on the site is because you did most of them. You did the plurality of them. And I do know that it's been a team effort from everyone. So I know it's the busiest time of year for our site, and thank you everyone that has contributed on our end for those. And then of course we'll be reporting back with, I think by next week, James and Adam should both be back. So we might have the full crew again. We can talk about their on-site experience, meeting, staff alumni over in LA, meeting, our connections and friends over at some of the publishers, the PR agencies. So we'll also just follow up on in general, like how was Summer Games Fest? So that'll be kind of fun to talk about hopefully next week. If not next week, the week after. Any other concluding thoughts? Oh yeah, and I guess thank you to Josh and Chow for showing up shorthanded with me on this podcast.
It's still a pretty long episode, to be honest with you. There's just a lot of news to cover.
Yeah, we knew it would be.
Yeah,
Any other final thoughts before we start wrapping up and
no, it's always going to be weird without E3. It's going to take a long adjustment period. I'm still not a big fan of the Summer Games Fest structure and like having 10 million live streams, spread out at so many days. It feels
going to Anime Expo count too. Wouldn't that be a thing?
No, it's Anime Expo is its own thing because like Anime Expo is just like it's a convention. It only lasts for a few days, only through a weekend, and it's not like scattershot. Everything's kind of all consolidated. So I mean, I don't know. Summer Games Fest is always not. Hopefully, they find a better structure. This can't be the way forward forever.
I do think like if one of the this is just an example. If Xbox said we're going to do our showcase in July, you think that would just be like you'd get more eyeballs around it rather than it being swarmed with everything else, especially for like the wholesome games or the future games or the Guerrilla Collective. If they said we're going to do ours in late May or we're going to do ours in August, like that way it's just not a swarm of things fighting for attention. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just it's like you have all these streams that like have like cool indie games, but it's hard to like get eyes on them because it's like, oh yeah, we're also like the eighth indie stream that showing off indie games today. It's like, okay, great, and there's like also this like other indie stream like earlier this week that like literally showed like a different indie game per minute for like 3 hours. And it's like, how the fuck are you ever gonna like get any attention on like those games if you're doing it in that style? It was like bop 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 bop. Like that's it. It's like a gameplay, quick 1 minute gameplay. You may or may not know the name of that indie, and then moved on immediately. There has to be a better way.
There has to be a better way. I'm imagining like the monochrome like infomercial, like Summer Games Fest got you down. There has to be a better way. I don't know.
Yeah.
But obviously, hopefully, we're limited in what we can do as a podcast, but hopefully, we have helped at least for those that are interested primarily in this style of game. Hopefully, we've been able to at least dilute it down or present it in a way that is convenient to our listeners. Again, thank you so much for listening and sticking with us as we go through all the news across all these different genres. You can find RPG Site online. Just search for RPG Site. You'll find our website, rpgsite.net. We're on Twitter, RPG Site. Technically on YouTube, technically on Instagram. Not as active on those as on the others. If you do listen to this podcast, whatever you listen to us on, Spotify, Amazon Music, whatever, give us a like and a rating. That helps us, helps our visibility, and we like to see comments if you have any of those. Comment on the news posts or the features on the site. 2 hours ago, we went through all the features on the website. So if you enjoyed those, please give those a like and a rating on the site. We'd love to see those as well. If you listen to us on YouTube, you got an option there as well. We will be back next week covering everything that hasn't been announced yet over the weekend. So stay tuned for all of that. It's going to be a busy year. It's not slowed down, not really. So we're going to keep plugging along. Thank you so much for supporting our site and our channel. Until
next week is also the next week is also Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, I believe, too.
Oh yeah, June 14th. So yeah, 6 days away.
Yep.
And then a week after that's Elden Ring. Doesn't slow down.
Yep.
Then there's Dawn Trail week after
that. Dawn Trail.
That's Tsukihime, of course, Chow, right?
Yes, and there's also Trails Through Daybreak. Everything just all within the summer.
But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, stay safe, take care. We'll talk to you all next week.
Peace out.